depends. It depends. Everything does depend. And Charlie said something about how this is really involved and deep and all that stuff. But I would say this is not rocket science, or Charlie and I wouldn't be doing this. No offense. And it really, just do what we say and you're going to get what you want. And that means you have to work with people you trust. Because if somebody who is not trustworthy and you do what they say, you're going to find yourself right back in a place you didn't want to be. So it's really, really important to find people that you can tell everything to, completely honest to. Some people are like, I don't want to tell my lender this, I don't want to tell my lender that. I'm like, this lender works for you. They don't work for their bank. They want to get you closed on the loans so they get paid, they can feed their family. They can get creative. It doesn't mean breaking the rules. It's just they've done it long enough to say, we can call this, this. And if we call this, this, then this is going to happen to you. A good thing about it. So it's really, really important to surround yourself with good people that you can trust 100%. That's the first thing I would say. And morphing into the real estate section, finding a realtor, we're not supposed to talk about realtors. As realtors, we're not supposed to say bad things about realtors. It's an ethical concern. I'm just going to say it. If realtors have a reputation for being a certain way, unsavory, we hear it about attorneys and car mechanics. It's a reputation thing. And reputations don't lie. So, and I always use this example, Bill Clinton, when he was the president, had a reputation for being late to meetings. It was because he was late to meetings all the time. And he also had a reputation for being a philanderer, and we know about that. So, if you work with somebody, if you're trying to find somebody honest in an industry where people aren't necessarily reputable, you really have to think about referrals, talk to family and friends, who's really looking out for you, who's going to treat you like family. So, first and foremost, I would say, try to lock in with good people. If you lock in with somebody good like Charlie, he's going to say you need a good honest realtor, you should talk to one of these 3 people. Or, I know your personality already on the phone, I think you would do great with this realtor. And try to pair you up with somebody who's going to do a good job for you. You don't have to love your realtor, you just have to trust your realtor and know that they know what they're doing. So part of trust is that A, they're obviously going to treat you right, but B, they know what they're doing. And if they don't know what they're doing because they're a new realtor, maybe they're being mentored by a really good broker. So it's okay to work with a young realtor who's just starting out. They may be over-serving you to the point where I kind of keep calling you. But if they don't know really how to navigate perfectly, but they just have a fresh license, if they have somebody behind them, you don't have to worry about giving somebody a shot. As long as they know what they don't know and they know who to ask above them for help. There's that. I was going to say, to start out, that I jokingly say, if I have a good client I have pivots with and I can, bust their chops a little bit, at the end of the closing, I'll say, welcome to homeownership, sucker. And all of us who own homes can appreciate that sentiment. And because the honeymoon period wears off, it's great to say, these are my trees, that's my leaves in the gutter, and I'm going to get on the ladder on Friday and clean the gutter, the rain's coming, and then 6 months later, you're like, crap, those are my leaves in the gutter. Because everybody wants to buy a house from somebody who's like the greatest generation of World War II folks who everything's perfect, you can eat off the floor of the garage, and they're the people you see out in the yard all the time working. That's who we all want to buy a house from, and that's great, but it takes a lot of work to keep that house there. So if you think that all of a sudden, if they say, it's a super well-maintained house, well, you're going to have to super well-maintain it yourself now. Or your investment's no longer an investment. God knows what it is, but it's just a big sucking sound of money. So it's really important to be aware that not only can you afford to buy a house, but can you afford to own a house? That's a big difference. And there's a rule of thumb, 2 to 3% of the value of your home should be used for maintaining your home on average per year. $200,000 house, you're at $4,000 to $6,000 a year in maintaining it. You may not incur much at all 1 year, but you may need an HVAC system the following year, which is $7,500. So you need to be aware of that. You just have to. So it's not always a winning proposition owning a home. If you buy right and you buy right early on, it is a winning proposition, it can be, but you have to have the financial capacity and the sweat equity, if you don't have that, to do work on your house. But it is pretty great to own a home, I'll be honest, because we lived in California where the rents were going up, and I just kept waiting for my landlord, who was in his 80s, to die, and we get a call that says, your $800 a month rent as a teacher, and I was a teacher at the time, is up. We're selling it, because the heirs were like, that house is worth $1 million. So knowing that someone can't call you and say we're selling the house is a really good feeling, you know. But you know, with that comes great responsibility. You have to take care of your stuff. So much of that is having money in the bank and knowing people, families, friends, people who want to help you. So like I said, it can be either a dream or a nightmare. It really does depend on that. And you know, just because you can afford a house and you can afford to maintain it, do you really want to? You know, a lot of money goes into that. So if you've always dreamed about traveling, once you canceled your debt out, maybe find a good house that has a really good landlord who's responsible when the toilet backs up, or whatever. Be a good tenant, you know. My job, as I would say, first and foremost, is not to be a realtor for you, but it's to help you make decisions in the real estate world. And sometimes that decision is, I don't think I'm going to buy a house. I looked at it hard. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I'm sorry I'm not buying a house because you're not going to make any money. But really, we're here to help you make a decision. A good realtor will do that. And if you're going to live in something for 2 or 3 years, you probably should keep renting. You know, if you're thinking, you know, 3 to 5 years, well, now take a look at the house, the neighborhood. Is it a power play? The power play is the classic one. Is everything in this neighborhood selling for $150 and I got it for $130. And it's like every other house. That's a classic example of a power play. Another power play is I'm getting in this neighborhood. It's still a little higher than what it used to be, but it keeps going up. So I'm getting into the market now. So an agent who knows what they're doing, a realtor who knows what they're doing, will help you with making those kinds of decisions, because you don't want to make a bad decision and find out after you've closed on the house that you've made a bad decision. We can see trends in neighborhoods where they're going. They cycle up and down constantly. Athens market is changing big time right now. We have a lot of people coming from all over the country to live here, and it's really picked up pace in that regard. And it stinks when you try to get into a market that seems to keep going up. December, they said home prices went up 10.6% nationally in a month. So like that's staggering. The people who have been in this business 30 years are telling me they've never seen anything like it. Lenders, appraisers, realtors, and it really is crazy. But you know, the pendulum will likely swing back. So if you're still in the process of trying to get your credit together, save money, whatever, just know that we'll see a little dip, prices will drop, and you can get back in, or you can get in. You know, even if it's a few percentage points less, it'll help you. Hypothetically speaking, you've talked to Charlie, you've decided you want to buy a house, you've talked to me, you've looked at all of the realities of homeownership, and you say, I still want to do it. What you do then is you find a realtor. Hopefully that's pretty good find, and you work through those questions. You really do want to find somebody who knows the market and who can school you left and right. Every time I work with you, Joe, I find out something different about Athens I didn't know happened when I grew up here. Like, I didn't know this was why people don't buy in that neighborhood or whatever. So we really become your partner in the process. You learn a lot about someone. You go deep very, very quickly with your realtor. It's really fun when you're working with a couple because you see the couple dynamics, and sometimes the husband's like, I want this house so bad, the wife's behind me. And so you're kind of everything. You're a family counselor, you're a couples counselor, you're a psychologist, you're a little bit of a finance person, you're local history, you're all these different things, and you're a teacher first and foremost. You're educating people so they can make a smart decision. So the first thing we do is, it's got to be a fun process. Working with first-time home buyers is awesome. It is a lot of work. Working with somebody who's buying their 10th house, and they're just like, tell me where to sign. And then they just, looking at their watch and checking their phone, and they get in their car and leave. And yeah, I get paid, it's great, but it's really fun otherwise. So making your wish list is really cool. I want a 3-bed, 2-bath, I want 2,000 square feet on 2 acres with a 2-car garage, I want a fence, I want all this, I want it for $150,000. I'm like, that's not gonna happen. In Indiana. But we do try to keep you realistic about it and not show you stuff that you can't afford, So, but making your wish list is really cool. We always ask, if you had everything you wanted in your house but you wanted one more thing. You could have one more thing, what would this be? And then we'll say the same thing if you're married or whatever, what would your kids want it to be? Because we do want to try to exceed your expectations at whatever price level you're in. So if you really like a big kitchen, or I've always wanted a big master bathroom or something like this, workshop, whatever. So we keep that in mind. We ask you, what are your basic minimums? How handy are you? Are you willing to work on a house? If not, is your parent a contractor, or do you have the money to pay people? The other thing is a good realtor will keep you very well advised as far as hiring people to work on your house, from getting your home inspected and getting a good lender if you don't have one, all the way to, hey, our whatever quality halfway through, a good plumber? Do you know a good tree service person? And I got that thing in the back. That's definitely made a few years back for us. Nabo, we own Nabo across the street, across the hall here. But we don't disappear after you buy a house. A good realtor won't. You just keep talking to them. Hey, call Joe P, call Joe P, call Joe P, or call whoever. But we fix things for you by helping you get it fixed, But what we do typically is we start looking at houses together. You may say, hey, I found these 10, and I say, I found these 4, and here's 14, and we look at them all, and we check on the availability of them. 10 of them are under contract, 4 are available, and of the 4, I say, well, this one has a sinkhole in the back, or whatever, something I might know specifically about that house. And I do know the inventory pretty well around here. Some homes we've bought and sold a number of times for people. Then we narrow it down to say there's 3 that are good. Let's go take a look at them. In a perfect world, get in the car, we go and look at them. And a good realtor will tell you, you go and find reasons to buy the house. I'll find reasons for you not to buy the house. So you can be like, look at this kitchen, and I'll say, look at the water stains above the fireplace. This house needs a roof. It doesn't mean you're not going to buy it. It just means going in eyes wide open, and can you negotiate a roof? And that's another part of the process. But a good realtor will help you just stay focused, because it's a fun time and it's a good time to be excited. But I learned one time, an agent or a client once said to me, talk me out of this house. We really want to buy it. Talk me out. And so that's what I try to do in my head is I need to be trying to talk you out of something. And if I can't, then it's a good house. If you see my eyes light up, it's because this is a good house and we need to write an offer on it. I can totally see you in this. This is the problems, but I think I've talked to the other realtor. I have a sense of what these sellers are willing to do. But we're not here to be naysayers all the time, but most of my clients, we love that you do that, because some of them have purchased a house in the past and they didn't have that. My realtor just stood in there with their $3,000 worth of clothes on, and we walked around the house and they said, do you have any questions? It's not what a realtor should be doing. They should be partnering with you like a family member and say, I jokingly say to the right people, I'll burn this house down before I let you buy it. Because you cannot buy this house. And don't you really love it? You can't buy this house. Trust me. And here's why. And I'll show you why. And if the answer is we don't care, we still want to buy it, I'll say, all right, that's fine. I hope you buy it. But it's against what I think you should be doing. So after you find the house you like, theoretically, there's no other offers on it. You make an offer on it. The seller looks at it with the agent and says, we don't like that price. We're going to counter offer this price. And you say, I don't like that price. It's just, back and forth. So offers and counter offers. Once you come to terms with an agreement, it's not just what you offer on the house. It's how quickly can you close? Do you want the washer, dryer, refrigerator? Are you asking for the dead tree in the back to be removed? All these items are important. But what you don't want to do in a competitive market is say, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, and you get nothing and like it. Because we're going to work with somebody who gives us a nice, clean offer. Super simple. So you see all these issues with it. You don't tell the seller that you see all these issues with it, because when you go to try to hit them between the eyes to get all that stuff from them, and they know that you're basing your offer on all those things, they're going to say, well, surely you've made the offer knowing that there were all these issues. I shouldn't have said that. So what you want to try to have is your cake and eat it too. Get a good price, make yourself look great on paper. When all the other buyers are squeezed out, then you go in for the kill and you try to get a better price on the house, get the dead tree removed, say you want the appliances. You'll get everything with the washer, dryer, fridge. Everything else typically comes with it. but the movable items like that can often be negotiated. So, we do it back and forth. You do get a home inspection, typically $350 to $450. That's during a period called due diligence. And after you go into contract, it's a binding agreement with the seller, but you're not bound to buy the house. So I always say you're binding but not bound. The seller can't not sell it to you, but you can not buy it if you want. And you can take your time. Hopefully it's a 14-day period. You get it inspected, sniff around the neighborhood, maybe there's people out raking the leaves. Just go over there and introduce yourself to them, say how you like it here, what do you know about the builder of these homes, whatever. And then during that process, there's some other things you can get done. You can get mold remediation, or mold and air tests and radon tests and all these other things you may want to do. The inspector will give you a report that's written, and it'll have pictures of everything. You then look at the report, we all look at the report, and say, what worries you about this? And I'll say what worries me about this. And in my experience, I can now go down and line item everything in that report and say, this is $200, this is going to be $300, roofs from that size house is going to be $7,500, and I can tell you very, very quickly and accurately these days, and say, we have about $25,000 worth of concerns. And you say, I don't care, my dad's a roofer, he's going to give us a roof. Well, the seller doesn't need to know that. You ask for the sun, moon, and stars, and hope they at least give you the sun, right? So you just hammer away at them, but very professionally in a way that has them saying this is legitimate concerns, and here's how we're going to do it. So you would submit, you go into another round of negotiations, and that's with your amendment to address concerns. Here are our concerns, and here's how we want you to deal with them. There's two things that happen when you buy a house. You have to put money down on your down payment. The other part is you have to buy money. If you buy a car, you give them money and they give you a car. With a loan, you give them money and they give you money, right? The product they're selling you is money. So you are buying money. It costs money to buy money, just like it costs money to buy a car. It's not just the price of the car, tax, titles, fees, all that stuff, right? Those are called your closing costs. So that is part of the value of your home, or your cost basis. What it costs you to buy the house, price of the house, price of the inspections, the price it costs to buy the money, your closing costs, and Charlie can explain more of that to you. But the nice thing is you can try to sometimes fold those closing costs into the purchase price of the house, and you do it after, if you know the house is going to have issues, you just do it after inspection. And so you look really good in the offer, and you say, well, I have to bring $4,500 because that's my down payment, but it's going to cost me $5,800 to close the loan out and get it done. But there's about $5,800 worth of repairs here. I'm just going to ask them to give me $5,800 towards the repairs, and the money I would have had in the bank for that to use to buy the money, I'm just going to use it to work on the house myself with the contractors that I want to have do the work. And this way, the seller's not quickly trying to slap lipstick on a pig, as they say, and just get it closed. So there are a lot of different ways to address concerns that you have with the house. But the goal is to try to claw back as much money as you told them you would give them initially in the offer. Once you do go through all those things, the next thing is to get your appraisal done. And the appraisal is the bank won't lend you the money on the house if the house does not appraise or come to a value opinion from this professional person called an appraiser of that purchase price. So that's the purchase price minus how much you're putting down. That's how much they're running you. It has to appraise for the value of the home, the purchase price. So what they do is they look at all the other homes that are sold in the area. So I'm speaking, fast, but using small words, assuming that you don't know this, but you may already know all this. But they look at the comps. What is sold in the recent past compared to this house? Your house has a fireplace, yours has a little more value. Theirs had a 2-car garage, yours has a 1-car garage, yours has a little more value. And they balance it all out, and in the process come to what's called an opinion value. And if it appraises, then you're off to the races, you're closing essentially. You get the good news from these guys, and they say, hey, you appraised, you're closing. It's a really good day when that happens. Or they say, it didn't appraise, you're off $3,000. And you can then go back to the seller and say, it didn't appraise, I want to drop the price by no less than the appraised value. So I need it for $3,000 less. They can tell you no, they can tell you yes, or they can tell you we'll do $1,500 and you have to bring an additional $1,500 in the form of more down payment to buy it. But we have to work through that appraisal process. Hopefully it appraises. In this market, we've been seeing some appraisal issues because the prices are going up so fast that they're looking at comparable home sales from the past. So they're looking at a snapshot of the past to try to inform today. And if today keeps going up, there's very much a liable situation where it may not appraise. So you have to kind of be going into that eyes wide open. And that's a conversation we continue to have from day one. What if it doesn't appraise? What if it doesn't appraise? Well, my parents have 10 grand, they can gift it to me. Well, that's awesome, but it doesn't always happen that way. Or, like you said, just keep socking away your money in case you need to get your car tires repaired instead of putting it on a credit card. You say, well, I've been socking it away, and I haven't had to get car tires, but I have that additional $3,000. And Joe P says this neighborhood's going up in value. I'm going to be here 5 years. I'm going to do it. But that's a decision you get to make. We have a financing and appraisal contingency period in your offer that says if they say no and you can't afford to cover the difference, you can get out. And that's really important because you don't want to be stuck in a contract. And you do have to give what's called earnest money. It's not required in the state of Georgia, but you put up about 1 or 2%, sometimes more, of the value of the home, and it's held by a third party. Just a good faith gesture saying, I have this money, I'm going to put it here, I'm not going to touch it. And if I breach contract and I can't get it done, then you can have my earnest money. But we have protections for you along the way. Your due diligence period is 14 days, where you're binding, but you're not bound. You can get out for any reason. Any reason. You don't have to give a reason. It's unilateral. You say, my foot hurts, I don't want to buy a house. Get me out. And you're out. But if that money starts to go harder and harder in the direction of the seller with each day that you get closer to closing. So then you have your financing contingency period, 7 days, say. Go to Charlie, he says you're good to go. So that contingency period's done. The last thing is your appraisal. It's usually the longest period because you don't want to get your appraisal too soon, because these guys will take a credit card or give them pay up front for that appraisal. And so if you get it appraised too soon and the deal doesn't go through, you're out that $450. So that's our job. Stephanie and I, we have what we call the board across there in her office. It's just a big whiteboard. It's your name, your address, and all your contingency periods, what the dates are, and all that. So we know to keep you on top of things. We say you're busy making money to try to buy a house, so we keep an eye on everything for you. When we need stuff from you, we get it from you, and we just kind of keep a fire under you to make sure you're understanding what your deadlines and commitments are. So if you do appraise, the next thing to do is start getting your financial ducks in a row. Hopefully they already are, but you're getting money like wired over to Charlie, and you're finding out who's the electric company, who's the gas company, and how do I get the utility shifted over. So all along the process, you are talking to Stephanie and I probably 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. And there's complete acute hyperdrive. We're all in it together. We get you in a contract and all this stuff. And then we kind of go dark on you. Like, I heard from Steph and Joe P in like a week and a half, This is weird. And sometimes we'll call and just go, I just needed to hear your voice, because we're done. You're pretty much done. Everything else is finding who you're going to have insure your house, $200,000 house, somewhere between $800 and $900, maybe $1,000 a year, and shopping that out. And we can help you with that. You get trash, and you get in town, so it's going to be the city. So once all those logistics are done, typically there's another maybe sometimes 2 weeks. We're just kind of sitting there like, I'm really buying a house now. I'm not talking to any of the people. We're like your pit crew, and you're just out there doing circles, and we don't need to call you in, and you don't need to come, but that's the fun part. You're done. You can start making plans. You can start going back out measuring for curtains, picking paint out, just doing all the things that so when it's time to move, you have all that figured out. But just trying to see if there's anything else here really quickly I should tell you. Buy pizza and beer for people who help you move. That's always a good one. If you can get it done, that's a cheap way to get your stuff moved. Like I said, there are a lot of moving parts, but it's not rocket science. It's really not. It seems really overwhelming. I was going to tell you, don't take notes. Just listen. And when you have questions, find a realtor you trust. Call them and say, do you have the time and energy to work with me? I'm a first-time home buyer. I have a million questions, and I need some hand-holding along the way. And if the answer is yeah, come on, then come on. Stephanie's 5 in the back. It's amazing with first-time home buyers. It is the most rewarding people to work with, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. And it should be fun because, if it's boring, you should be able to celebrate the fact that you've gotten to this point, and then it does take a lifestyle change. If you're not used to maintaining a property, it takes time. Those people out there raking leaves and doing their gutters, like I said, that house is awesome for a reason. So you can get in there and start living, and it will start. We watched foreclosures during the foreclosure era. I walked into a house. I could practically smell a house and say, this is a foreclosure. There would be dust caked on the top of the ceiling fans. I'm not kidding. 2 and 3 inches thick. They just got in and they started living and they never did anything. They never even let the dogs out. And that's the extreme version. But it always takes sort of a list, an ongoing list, like a little notebook that you keep in your pocketbook and just pull it out. What do I need to be doing this month? Am I changing my HVAC filters? Am I going to get it serviced? There's always something. And it doesn't have to be really expensive, but it's stuff you have to stay on top of. But if you don't, deferred maintenance will just entropy, they call it, just start to suck the house into the ground. The older houses seem to get sucked into the ground faster. And that's just a matter of making a list of things that you need to do on an ongoing basis. And if you don't know who to call your realtor, and say, I always tell them, I can tell you where to buy car tires, where to buy flowers for your girlfriend. If you're from out of town, you've never been here before, where's a good place to eat? Who's a good person to clean your gutters? We help people with everything. And so it's not just, we know the market, we know the area, we know people. I always got a guy. And we always have a guy, so call Joe P. So that's who you want, somebody like that. But do you have any other questions? There's more. Well, if you like new construction and you can afford it, the answer is pretty simple. Get new construction. It's modern code, modern energy efficient appliances, newer windows. The cheapest windows these days are better than the worst windows 10 years ago. And so, yeah, that's always nice. But if you're buying a spec home, which means the builder's just building it speculatively, hoping to sell it, you're going to pay the premium that the market's bringing for that. If it's a hot market, and you get into a subdivision, one of the first two, and you feel strongly about the buyer and the neighborhood and all that, and the builder, buy it, because that same home is going to be worth $20,000 more in 3 years because you bought the house. The next house just like it is going to be $5,000 more, and $5,000 more, and $5,000 more. So if you can get in early, it's risky because you don't know if they're going to go belly up. But if it's a good local builder and your agent knows them and says they're good people, that's one thing. If you want to find a small lot somewhere, pay $30,000 for it, and pay somebody to build for you, that's the best way to make money, because spec homes sell at a premium because it's a risk reward. The more risk that the builder has, the more reward they want for it. And so they're going to give it to you. They want it from you, So they're going to give it to you. But if you do it yourself, and you don't go crazy and dip all your stuff in gold, and you just say, I don't need granite, I'm fine with formica. I don't need a clawfoot tub. I just want a plastic clawfoot tub, a faux clawfoot. You can buy a brand new house for way less than a brand new house would cost you, considerably less, say 20%. But if it's a $200,000 house, that's $40,000 of equity, because that house that you went through hell to have built, and all the decisions and the headaches and everything. Well, what you get are two things. You get the house, but you typically get equity. That house is worth more than you paid to have it built. So you could turn around the next day and probably sell it for 20% more, right? And so, you deserve to be applauded for that. It also requires you to get a new construction loan, which is very doable. You just go to a local bank and they give you have to put up 20% very often of the total value of the home when it's all finished. So that's $200,000 home, you give the bank 40, they take 160 and they put it in an account for you, and you say, hey, the builder's done with the foundation. That's a benchmark or whatever. And so the bank will give the builder money for that. Then the builder says, okay, I'm done framing, and they get another one. We're have the roof on, the windows are in, they get these draws, they're called, until the final draw. Once that's all done, it's usually a local lender that does it, a small bank here in town. I don't know if you guys do new construction. but they'll go ahead and what's called perm it up. They'll make it into a permanent mortgage, and they'll just turn it into a 30-year mortgage for you. But for that first year or whatever, it's called a construction loan. Often you have to pay interest on it, just interest only, which is fairly low. But yeah, if you have the ability to do it, it's very hard right now because land's expensive and building is even more expensive right now. Wood is a commodity, so it goes up and down in price. Right now it's very, very high. And then as goes wood, so goes everything else. But yeah, I mean, conceptually, it's good. I don't know. I don't think so.
No, it's not. Yeah, renting is sometimes we'll see companies actually carry a trade line on your credit report, believe it or not. But like 90% of the time, your rent has nothing to do with your credit report.
Yeah.
Okay, so a seller's market and a buyer's market basically is, in a seller's market, there are tons of people looking for homes and there aren't many homes. So the homeowner's like, here's my price and I'm not giving you anything else. And you go, this sounds great, and then you buy the house and you get, don't get much. In a buyer's market, there are tons to sell and not many buyers out there. So the buyer can say, I'm giving you this for the house, I want you to wash your dryer and refrigerator, I want you to survey the corners, I want to have the dead tree down, all that stuff, and they go, sure, anything else? They just want that house sold. So that's the best market to buy in. The neutral market it's balanced, and it's just basically supply and demand, and prices, it's a marketplace, so prices just go up and they go down. The thing about trying to create leverage in a seller's market and you're a buyer, typically there'll be multiple offers. So it's very difficult to win when there's multiple offers if you have a loan and somebody has cash and they're willing to go asking price or over. Often you end up just kind of, man, this is frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. But we've seen, people write letters and they take pictures of their family. And they say, this is the house, this is the neighborhood I grew up in. And I want my kids to grow up here too. And we would love for you to consider our offer. No, it's not cash, but we're bringing it strong. We're not asking you for anything. You can take your refrigerator with you. We can close quickly. Or they say, well, we're moving into an assisted living facility and it's not going to be open for 6 months. And you go, great, stay for 6 months. We'll buy it 6 months from now if we can. And so you offer them other incentives to work with you. If they see that they can relate to you in your situation at some point, the only people who complain about babies crying on planes are people who have never had babies. It's the grandparents are like, let them cry, it's okay, because they were there once. But often people, they have money, and it's not just about the money to them. You can tug on their heartstrings a little bit, and it's one guy's like, that's insulting. I have to write a letter, and I'm like, then don't write a letter. It doesn't matter, but this is a stupid game. I'm like, no, you're actually really appealing to them, and you're saying, I'd like to try to buy this house from you. I can see myself here. It's not pandering, but there are just some other things. You can say, look, we're not going to beat you up after inspections. We're going to buy it as is. We don't want to ask you for a bunch of stuff. We just want to have it inspected. If we don't like what we see, we'll terminate it, but we're not going to ask you to do anything. And you may have a family friend who says, I can help you with all that stuff, or your realtor says, there's really not going to be much here. Tell them to buy it as is, So there's all different, like I can set up and give you all different ways of trying to give yourself a competitive edge. And so often it's that you can close really early, work with a lender who can close you incredibly fast. And I have a lender who can close people in 16 days. And if these guys really have to hump, they'll do it. And so this person says, 16 days, your offer's great, but that's really fast. I mean, can you give us 45? Well, suddenly you have somebody who's coming back to you hat in hand saying, please, I want you to work with us, but can you give us more time? Now they're asking you for something. If you have a seller asking you for something in a seller's market, you kind of have them on their heels, which is a good place to have them, but you want to do it very gently, the old iron fist and a velvet glove kind of thing. It's business, so you want to be reaching into the back pocket and pulling out their wallet without them knowing you're doing it. And it is a business, and I have to be hard-nosed in a gentle way to work for my client. But anything you give them, or you tell them you're going to give them, you want to try to give as much of it back, especially if you're asking over. You say, I'm giving them 10,000 over. I need to find 10,000 in repairs now. But it's just an ongoing conversation we have from day one. That's a good question. We have a client who moved out here from Nashville, and he bought a house that he pretty much was sure he was overpaying for on Clover Street here, and it was like 212, and nothing right in that general area had sold for over 185 or something. But in Nashville, he watched all his friends buy houses, and then the price went up really high, and he's like, oh man, I missed the market. And then he watched his friends, the next round of friends did it and bought a year later, and he's like, those guys are fools. But then the price went up again. And he missed the market 3 times because he kept saying, I missed the market. There's no way it's going to keep going up. Well, it kept going up. So he got here and he's like, I'm not going to miss the market. So he paid $185 for this house, or he paid $212 for it. It was $185. And he hasn't really done anything to that house. And he's been here about 3 years now. And it's probably worth close to $300. But he's like, I got in the market, but it was risky. You just never know. So is it going to keep going up, up, up? Yes. But is it going to go up crazy amounts? And will it retract a little bit? But over time, the average is that it's going up. That's probably what's going to happen. But we just have more and more people wanting to call Athens home. It's a good place to live, good place to raise kids, good place to grow homes. A lot of things here for seniors. And so it's not almost right now. It is emphatically a seller's market. Yeah, we have about 60% less homes on the market right now than we did this time last year. And this time last year, we had hardly anything on the market. And so I would bet it's probably even more than 60%. It's just drive around, look for sale signs. Usually you're like, oh, there's sale signs everywhere. It's not that way. I mean, that'll tell you. So another thing a good realtor will do is, they always say, business begets business. So a business person drums up business by virtue of the fact that they do a lot of business. Always have their ear to the ground, always talking to people. They hear something's coming up because they're talking to another realtor about a house, and they say, well, I have one coming up in Forest Heights. Oh, you do? And sometimes they're totally cool with it. They'll let you get in early. Other times they don't because they want to try to bring their own buyers to it or something. But, if you work with an experienced realtor who other agents like and trust and respect, they'll often tell you stuff before it hits the market. There's so many ways, like when someone's like, how did you get that house? Oh, we didn't see it hit the market. Well, it was about to hit the market, and my realtor actually went to the listing appointment, and the person said, I only want to get this amount. This happened in Green Acres last year. My good friend's little brother bought a house, and they said, we just want a net 135. And I was like, I can sell this house for $200,000 for you. We just want a net 135. And so my commission at that point was 6%. And I'm like, you guys are pretty cool. That's really noble of you to do that. They were going to buy and live at the beach in a trailer. They were marine biologists and they were leaving Athens. So I kept my commission 66%, and I did it for 2%. I just took 2% and I added it to the 135. And Sean, my client, he didn't have $200,000 to buy a house, but I said, Sean, I just got you into Green Acres for like 142. He's like, what? But so some people do this. They're just, money is not everything to everybody. And it isn't to me, so I cut the commission. And everybody is happy. Sean was psyched, they were psyched, I was psyched, and now I drive by, his car's always back in the driveway, place is all clean. And he bought in a seller's market, and he has equity in the house. Equity is, it's worth more than he paid for it. And so you can build equity by paying down your loan over 10, 15, 20 years. Each time you put more money down in the house, you owe less, and theoretically it's worth more too. So you have money there. If you ever had to sell it, you get back what all you put in it, and hopefully it's gone up in value as well. So there's ways of doing it. It's just, again, working with somebody who is like, eats, drinks, and sleeps the business and bleeds Athens. Like we know everything about Athens. It's our business to know. So when everybody's reading ESPN online, we're looking at comps. We're at night doing this or that and geeking out to it. So.